To first get acquainted more with you and your background, Jonathan, I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about the story of why alignment became a focal point for you or a really key interest area. And like, why'd you decide to write a book about it? And maybe introduce us a little bit more to what you mean by alignment and why it was such an important concept or principle for you to dive into.
Absolutely. So, having been in the technology and product space for well over 20 years, there was so many moments where I would see incredible projects and opportunities to really create value that were failing. And I wanted to understand why. So I became obsessed with understanding and studying failure in with products, with digital transformation, and understanding really what was the difference between those initiatives that were succeeding and those that were failing. And after years of just following my passion and my interest and trying to understand that there was a theme around alignment that rose to the surface of those that were able to successfully navigate and deliver great products, whether it was internal or external, to successfully navigate and complete massive transformation or modernization of their organizations. Alignment was at the heart of it. They were able to bring purpose and people and process and resources together in a very specific way to deliver on outcomes. And so that became the foundation of and the reason behind why I decided to write the book and really help people understand not just what alignment is, but how it has to be applied at the leadership level and with your teams in order to drive that success.
Were there any particular failures or I guess case studies that stood out to you during your research and time sort of investigating alignment that you think would be kind of fun to comment about?
There's so many facets we could dive into. I think to really dive into that specific piece, I think it's really interesting to actually look at what is alignment consist of, and then I can give a couple of examples of where I saw that happening. You know, when I did the research, and this came from years of going through study after study around product failure and technology studies, and looking at countless interviews that I was conducting with CTOs and business leaders and product teams. Alignment came out in four basic, ways. The first was individual alignment, which was all about how do people understand how their work contributes and matters? Why are we doing what we're doing? How do I make a difference? What impact am I making? And the second big aspect of alignment was around team alignment, which dealt with how do I bring together the unique disciplines and experience and perspective of all these amazing people to help solve problems. The third part of alignment was all about how do I build alignment that reflects the organization's larger purpose or vision, and how does that help us move forward our strategic priorities. And the fifth was market alignment, which all dealt with how do you align with the customer or the end user, and how does that problem you're solving create value, and that will drive the relevance and sustainability of the business. In that research, you could see, organizations that had done a tremendous job of doing this, and or you could see where one company was failing because one aspect of it wasn't working. There was a global manufacturer we were interviewing their leadership team for the book, and one of the key things there is that they were incredibly well disciplined at the organizational level, and so they had really strong organizational alignment, but they didn't really know how to take from senior leadership and help them connect that in really building team alignment. So they had a very traditional model of how kind of a command and control model of how they would manage the organization. Software was their next big frontier for their business. It was going to drive their modernization. But how do they actually build and align teams and integrated disciplines became extremely problematic. So their failure was in that they had their knowledge institutionalized and siloed across the organization, which made them unable to respond to the market and to really deliver on demands effectively. In other cases, we would run into situations where you would have an organization that was very engineering centric and had been very successful in that model for many years, but they were being challenged by incumbent brands who are coming in who had a much better pulse and connection to the customer. And so that market alignment was completely missing for them. They were making a lot of guesses and assumptions. And so even though the talk was about being customer centric, they didn't have any of the maturity yet as an organization, even though they're a well established company, to actually engage customers to help them validate what they knew and identify new areas of opportunity so they could prioritize working on the right things at the right time. And so these types of examples were happening all over the place that we would see as we would start to have these conversations. And we see it in the work that we do, both with startups who are kind of in their infancy stages towards those mid-market and Fortune 100 brands that we also work with who are struggling as they're trying to evolve and develop new skills and capacity in the organization.